Hello students, as you know that we are doing a YouTube series of some of the sessions which are important for you to crack the examinations, right? And we are taking some simple questions, some moderate level questions and some tough questions also for you to probably ponder over that what kind of questions do come in the examinations and how we should approach such kind of questions. So today we'll be talking about understanding the voice behind the passage. And what is that? That is deciphering or decoding the tones of the passages. So the first slide talks about tone. Now, what is the tone of a passage? Now, this is a question which most of the students feel that they are not able to get to the correct answer, right? So, students, let me tell you, tone basically is the writer's attitude towards the subject. Right? When an author tries to pen down something on a piece of paper, he probably has something in his mind, right? And what is his attitude towards writing that piece of text at that moment of time? That is the tone. So it is the author's attitude towards that subject, right? Or you can say this attitude, this tone of the author, it affects how readers perceive the message and get engaged, right? So how the readers perceive the message and how they get engaged in it, it totally depends upon if they are able to decode that what was there in the author's head when probably he was writing this piece of text. All right, so let's try to figure out some of the tones. So if I give you an overview of the tones, so there are some of the tones. Probably we have philosophical tones, we have, you can say, euphemistic tones, we have, you can say, pedestrian tones, right? So we have analytical tones, cynical tones, critical tones. So we'll try to figure out the answers to some of the tones in today's session. All right, so the first tone here is cerebral tone. Right? Now, if you people understand that cerebrum, it's one of the parts of our brain, right? So if I relate it to that, cerebrum. So cerebral is related to cerebrum of the brain. And what does cerebrum, what does brain do? It thinks, it ponders over, it reflects on what probably it should do, it has done, right? So when you're in a deep thinking mode, that probably would be something related to the cerebral tone, right? So if you look at this sentence, what I put over there, exploring deep thoughts and insights. So whenever there is a tone which is cerebral tone, that means if there's a passage, if there's a piece of text that as in prompts you to explore some deep thoughts, then probably it's a cerebral tone, right? Now let me read it for you. The cerebral tone involves deep thinking about life, values, and meaning, encouraging readers to reflect on profound concepts and engage with the complex ideas. So how you are able to engage yourselves with the complex ideas that are given in a piece of text, right? And how that deep thinking of yours about life, about values, help you to decode that, whatever is given in the passage, right? So that would be called a cerebral tone. Now there is probably an example for you for this particular tone. Now if there is a statement, right, or probably if there's a small paragraph, I've just written one liner or two liners over here. So if there's a paragraph that says success is not just about achievement, it is about fulfillment and finding purpose in every endeavor we pursue throughout our lives, right? Now if you look at these 2 or 3 lines and if you try to think over it, then yes, it has a profound meaning. It has a profound meaning that success is not just about achievement. So we achieve so many things in our lives, right? So we have many goals, we have short-term goals, we have long-term goals. So we try to achieve those goals in our lives, but success is not restricted to those achievements. It's about fulfillment and finding purpose in every attempt, every endeavor you try to do in your life, right? So when you're happy, when you're satisfied, or when you find purpose with something. See, for example, there's a person who has passion for teaching, right? And probably he goes to the slum areas and without thinking about the salary and all, probably he's so passionate to deliver something or probably to impart his knowledge or her knowledge to the students, right? So probably he's passionate about that. So that is his purpose in life, maybe, right? So when you talk about success being an achievement, so that is a shallow thing. But when you say that, when you find purpose in life, so it has a deep meaning. Yes, profoundly. That is true for all of us, in fact, right? So for this particular example, we can say that yes, these lines do have a cerebral tone, right? Because they prompt us to think deeply. All right, students. So now, what is the easy clue for you? A cerebral tone often reflects on life, purpose, and values, which I told you earlier also, right? Inviting readers to examine their beliefs and understandings in a thoughtful manner, right? So you have to keep in mind, so this is a cue for you, this is a clue for you, that a cerebral tone will reflect something about life, something about value, something about purpose of life, right? So if your brain is invited to think about these things, then probably it's a cerebral tone. All right, students, so let me go to the next tone for the day. Now, the next tone is euphemistic tone. Now, you must have studied in figures of speech also. There is a figure of speech which is called euphemism. And you better know that what is euphemism. So, euphemism is basically, or you can say euphemistic expressions are the expressions which are the milder versions for the harsh versions. So, for example, if somebody dies or somebody kicks the bucket, it seems a little rude when you say somebody kicked the bucket, because that's an idiomatic expression. And when you say somebody died, it's a rude expression. So we simply say somebody passed away, right? Or for somebody who is not able to see, we say he is visually impaired. Or probably for somebody but who probably is a cripple or handicapped, we can say he's differently abled, right? Rather than saying he's disabled. Or probably simply saying that he's a cripple, he's blind. We cannot say that, right? Because these terms seem a little rude. So we have to use the milder versions for them. And when you use a milder version for a rude version, that expression is called a euphemistic expression. And if you remember, in your root words, in the classes of etymology, we talked about the root words and the prefixes and the suffixes as well. So you as a prefix simply means something good. So if you know that you as a prefix means something good, something harmonious, that means euphemistic expression has to be something, right? Now, what is a euphemistic tone? Now you've got like a better idea of what a euphemistic tone could be. So understanding the use of gentle language, right? That is a euphemistic tone. So let me read it for you. Euphemistic tone employs soft language to convey the harsh truths in a more delicate manner, making the difficult subjects easier to discuss with sensitivity, right? So, euphemistic tone is a softer version, a milder version, a soft language that you use to probably discuss those things which otherwise would be difficult for you to discuss. Why? Because those are probably the sensitive topics. But when we use that kind of vocabulary, when we use the milder and the softer versions, the politer versions, then probably it becomes a little easy for us to discuss such things, right? So, that's called a euphemistic tone. And as an example, let's take an example. If I give you a sentence which says, asked to explore opportunities outside. If I say, if being a manager of some company, I tell somebody or I politely request him or her to explore opportunities outside. That means, in a way, I am trying to tell that person that he or she is being fired, right? So rather than saying you're fired, right, you're sacked, that becomes a little rude. So we can simply say, you can please explore the opportunities outside. So why a person who is already working in a company or working somewhere, why he or she is supposed to explore the options outside? Why? Because probably this company doesn't want him or her anymore in his company, right? So it subtly addresses a job loss without using the harsh terminology. Now, this particular sentence, please explore the opportunities outside. What does it do? It addresses a job loss, right? But without sounding harsh, without sounding too difficult, right? It is a subtle expression. It is a polite expression. Is that clear, students? So, a cue for you again. Look for the gentle expressions that replace unpleasant truths, indicating a desire to soften the impact of the message while maintaining clarity. So the clarity has to be there. Once you use a euphemistic expression for a harsh expression, it should not change the meaning of the sentence altogether. So the meaning, the clarity, the transparency should remain intact. But in a different manner, in a very subtle manner, you should be able to express what you wanted to express earlier. Is that clear, students? So that was euphemistic tone. Now let's come to the third tone for the day. It's pedestrian tone. Right, pedestrian tone. Now, probably you might not know what is a pedestrian tone, but yes, all of you know that who are pedestrians, right? So if I talk about a pedestrian is basically a person who walks on foot, right, on the footpath. तो अभी देखो on foot कौन जाएगा? एक बिल्कुल ही commonplace सा इंसान, right? If we hail from a royal family, so probably we'll have our BMWs, we will have as in whatever we want to travel in, right? But if we hail from a middle class family, so probably we are pedestrians. In fact, all of us are pedestrians at some point of time. It's just a general idea or a connection I'm trying to give you, right? Now, what could be a pedestrian tone? Pedestrian tone is simply something which is very commonplace, right? It is something which is very commonplace, you can say. So if it is commonplace, that means there's no excitement as such, right? There's no excitement. And if there is no excitement, then definitely yes, it's something mundane, it's something routine, it's something boring, right? It's something very bland and flat. Is that clear? So that is called a pedestrian tone. So many students actually do not understand what is pedestrian. So I'm again as emphasizing on this point. Pedestrian का मतलब होता है on foot जो चलते हैं, तो common लोग हैं, right? So it is something a commonplace thing, right? Something which is very boring, routine, जिसमें कोई भी ज़्यादा excitement नहीं है, ठीक है? बिल्कुल एक bland सा language use किया है, right? So that is called a pedestrian tone. So let me read it for you. The pedestrian tone is characterized by a flat, routine description that lacks emotion or insight, making it straightforward but often uninspiring. So if there is something very bland, something very straightforward, so there is no inspiration as such. तो किसी ने कोई बात बोलनी, उसने बिल्कुल एकदम straightforwardly वो बात बोल दी, उसमें कोई इंस्पिरेशन नहीं है, कोई यूफेमिस्टिक वर्जन नहीं है, totally bland है वो चीज. Are you getting it? So that's a pedestrian tone. So as an example, I've written something over here. If I say the class began at 9 and finished at 10, right? So there's no opinion, there's no emotion that has been involved in the sentence. I said the class began at 9 and it finished at 10. That's it. Straightforward, sateek ekdam. Are you getting it? So no emotions are involved, no opinions are involved over here, no adjectives, no descriptions, anything, right? So it's simply a simple statement. बिल्कुल what you can say, hit कर दिया आपने बुलजाई पे कि भाई 10 बजे क्लास शुरू हुई, 11 बजे खत्म हुई, 9 बजे क्लास शुरू हुई, 10 बजे खत्म हुई. That's it. उसमें कुछ भी आपने एक एक्साइटमेंट वाला पोर्शन कुछ नहीं डाला. No opinions, no emotions, no feelings, nothing as such. Are you getting it? So it's called a pedestrian tone. Now, as a cue, just again keep in mind, when writing in a pedestrian tone, the focus is solely on delivering just the facts, resulting in a blunt narrative that lacks depth. So, जैसे हमने cerebral tone में देखा. Now, when we talked about the cerebral tone, that was the first tone, right? We talked about today. So, cerebral is something which requires brain to think and ponder and reflect upon and cogitate upon the things, right? So, you can also call it a philosophical tone. क्योंकि philosophers ही हैं जो ज़्यादा सोचते हैं, right? But it's totally the opposite of that. Making sense? There's no emotion, there's no depth, right? As I said, there's no description. These are the straightforward lines you come up with. Is that clear, students? So you're just looking for the facts over here. So that is a pedestrian tone. I suppose I made myself clear. So let me go to the next tone for the day. Now the next tone is optimistic tone. Now all of you know what is optimistic and all of you know what is pessimistic, right? So optimistic is when you look at the brighter side of the things, and pessimism means when you look at the darker side of things. So they are opposites, right? So when you have hope, right, तो कुछ ना कुछ आपको लगता है कुछ अच्छा होगा. So you're being optimistic. You have that positive mindset. On the other hand, when you have that negative mindset, अरे कुछ अच्छा नहीं होने वाला. I know that even if I have prepared well, I'm not going to score well in my examinations. So that is a pessimistic as an approach, right? But when you say that yes, I've worked hard and that is something which is in my hands, Results are anyway not in my hands. Putting in efforts, being consistent, taking my mocks regularly, that is something which is in my hand. And yes, I've done all that, right? I have done all that with all sincerity. Making sense? So yes, I'm hopeful that I'm going to get good score in my entrance examination as well, like my boards. Is that clear? So optimistic tone, understanding the essence of optimism in writing, the hopefulness, the positivity, right? An optimistic tone expresses hope and a positive outlook on future events, emphasizing possibilities rather than limitations. So here, in the optimistic tone, you are not focusing on the drawbacks, you're not focusing on the loopholes, you're not focusing on the limitations, rather you are focusing on the possibilities, the hope, right? The future events, something good that the future events hold for you. Are you getting it? So that is called the optimistic tone. Now as an example, let's take an example. Despite limited resources, now understand this. Despite limited resources, the community came together to create a flourishing garden showcasing resilience and belief in a brighter future for all. So at times what do we say? मेरे पास तो resources ही नहीं था, मैं ये कर लेता, वो कर लेता, पर नहीं था, right? But what is the sentence saying? Despite limited resources, so resources are limited, but the community came together, right? Why? Because they wanted to create a flourishing garden, and finally they were as successful in doing it. Why? Because they had that positive mindset. कोई बात नहीं, resources कम है, but let's come together and let's see how we can probably make our dream come true. Is that clear? So they had that optimistic vision. Now the easy clue for you: look for the expressions of hope. So keep in mind whenever we talk about the positivity, the hope, right? So that means it's an optimistic tone. Look for the expressions of hope or confidence about what's ahead, right? Often highlighting potential successes and brighter days. So that is an optimistic tone. So on the contrary, we have another tone, that is the pessimistic tone. So definitely yes, here we focus more on, as I said, the drawbacks, we focus more on the limitations, the negativities, right? Unlike the optimistic tone. So this is totally the opposite of optimistic tone. Now, a pessimistic tone reflects a viewpoint that expects negative outcomes, emphasizing doubt and concern about the future events and situations. So in the optimistic tone, you had hope about it, right? About the future events. Making sense? You had positivity, you had positive outlook and approach towards the future events and whatever probably is going to happen in your life. But in the pessimistic tone, you always carry that doubt, you always have that concern, hoga ki nahi hoga, mujhe to nahi lag raha hoga, right? So that is being pessimistic. Now as an example, if I say repeated policy failures, understand clearly, repeated policy failures have left many questioning whether any improvements can be achieved in the near future, right? So repeated policy failures have left many questioning whether anything good can happen in the near future, anything can be achieved in the near future or not. Now, if a person fails repeatedly, that does not mean that he or she cannot do anything good in his future life. Making sense? So there are so many examples you might have come across. There are so many people who failed n number of times, and ultimately they were the biggest achievers of their times. Are you getting it? So when you say repeated policy failures have left many questioning whether something good is being achieved in the near future or not. Right? So that means now they have that concern and doubt कि भाई बार-बार फेल हो रहा है ये चीज, ये पॉलिसी बार-बार फेल हो रही है तो नहीं चलेगी, ऐसा जरूरी है. That is simply your mindset which is telling you this, right? So that means you have a pessimistic kind of mindset. Alright, so the easy clue for finding out the pessimistic tone is, pessimistic tone often feels heavy, indicating a lack of hope. Now in optimistic tone you had hope, right? Now here you have lack of hope, right? It often feels heavy, suggesting that positive change or improvement is unlikely, right? Because your mindset is like that, कि नहीं होगा. So you always feel the other way around, कि यार नहीं हो सकता है. The change, the improvement, it's unlikely. कम वर्ड में शायद नहीं होगा, right? So that is a pessimistic tone. All right, so let me move to the next tone for the day. Now we have the critical tone. Now let's understand what is the critical tone. A critical tone emphasizes faults and problems, right? Revealing the writer's dissatisfaction with the subject, right? So when you see, basically when we talk about criticism, it can be a positive criticism also, right? But here when we talk about critical tone, most of the times it would have a negative impact. That means the author is trying to look for those you can say flaws, or look for some problems, right? Look for some faults, right? Revealing the writer's dissatisfaction with the subject. It often conveys a sense of urgency to address these concerns. So because there are flaws, because there are problems, and because the author is not satisfied with this, so he is looking urgently for some solutions, right? So that's called being critical. अब क्रिटिकल क्यों हो रहा है? ग्लोबल वार्मिंग हो रही है, बहुत कुछ प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है पूरी दुनिया में, पूरे यूनिवर्स में. Now we need to do something, so you're more concerned about it, right? So that's called a critical tone. Now, as an example, let me take these sentences. Although the program claims to enhance student engagement, the reality shows a lack of effective implementation and support. Now, we have used a subordinating conjunction although over here, and we are saying that although the program claims to enhance student engagement, program हमें बता रहा है कि student engagement जो है वो enhance होगी, improve होगी. The reality shows a lack of effective implementation. लेकिन reality कुछ और है, right? क्या है reality? That there's a lack of effective implementation and support, and without that support, and if there is a lack of implementation, then definitely yes, we are not going to enhance the student engagement. Making sense? So the author is being critical and he's probably looking for the solution. Are you getting it, students, right? So easy clue for you is look for the writing that highlights issues and shortcomings, indicating the author's intent to provoke thought and discussion about these flaws and problems. I repeat, listen carefully. Look for the writing that highlights issues or shortcomings or flaws or faults, indicating the author's intent to provoke thought or discussion about these flaws and these concerns. Is that clear? Because as I said, he's looking for the solution. That's why he's being critical about it. Alright, so let me move to the next tone for the day. Now we have analytical tone. Now let's understand the analytical tone. The analytical tone involves examining details and causes logically. Right, so you are analyzing the situation. For example, you sit for an examination, you sit for a mock paper, for example, and ultimately you analyze it. देखो, जब तक mock paper को हम analyze नहीं करेंगे, उसका analysis नहीं करेंगे, वो फायदा नहीं उस mock paper को देगा. So when we analyzed it, we got to know कितने questions हमारे गलत हुए, कितने ठीक हुए, कौन सा topic के questions ज़्यादा गलत हो रहे हैं, कौन से topic के questions पे I probably have the hold. So most of the times I see that any question which is related to para completion, it's getting correct, right? So probably I have the hold on para completion wala questions. Making sense? So analysis is something which is very important. And what is that analysis? It involves examining details and causes logically, right? Providing clarity to the subject matter while maintaining a neutral stance. So your stance is neutral. You're not biased, right? You're not using your feelings or emotions over here. You're not biased towards. So your stance is neutral, right? So analytical tone basically would come under the neutral tone, right? But you are providing clarity to the subject matter. Why? Because you're looking for the details and causes in a logical way. Right? So this is how you analyze the situation. Now, as an example, the decline in reading habits among students can be attributed to several factors, including increased screen time and changing educational practices. Right? So, which probably most of us do agree with. We do agree with this statement. Now, we are saying the decline in reading habits among students can be attributed. Right? So, इसमें कोई ऐसा persuasion नहीं है. We are not trying to convince the people. It's a neutral tone. It can be because of the several factors. One of them being the more screen time, and the other might be the changing educational practices. So, this is an analytical tone. right? Now an easy cue for you. An elliptical tone breaks down the complex ideas into understandable components, focusing on clear and logical reasoning to support its conclusion. राइट तो अगर कोई भी टेक्स्ट है जिसमें आपको ऐसा लग रहा है कि complex sentences have been broken down, right? So they have been broken down into the simpler versions of them because they are trying to but logically reason out the conclusion, making sense, then probably it's an analytical tone. Is that clear, students? All right. So देखो अगर on a broader canvas probably we have the positive tone, the neutral tone and the negative tone. राइट तो नेगेटिव टोन है, जैसे पेसिमिस्टिक टोन है वो नेगेटिव हो जाएगा, ऑप्टिमिस्टिक है तो वो पॉजिटिव हो जाएगा. एनालिटिकल टोन है, नो बायसनेस इज सच. न्यूट्रल टोन है, पेडेस्ट्रियन टोन, वेरी बोरिंग, स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड. न्यूट्रल टोन है, no emotions are related, no feelings are related to that. Are you getting it, students? All right, so let me go to the next tone for the day. Okay, that's the neutral tone, generalized one. Now neutral tone means that when there is no subjectivity involved, when there is no subjectivity involved. So whatever you are saying, it's objective. कोई, as I said, कोई emotion नहीं है, कोई biasness नहीं है, no prejudices involved. Are you getting it? So let me read it for you. Neutral tone is a writing style that focuses solely on facts. ठीक है, जो facts पे focus करता है, without infusing personal opinions or emotions, ensuring clarity and precision in communication. So it's very clear, it's very precise, no emotions involved. As I said, they are solely this kind of this kind of tone. It focuses on the facts, just the facts, right? So no other as an element involved in it. That is called a neutral tone. कोई biasness नहीं है, as I said. As an example, the survey included 1,200 students, which provided a comprehensive overview of current student opinions on educational practices and policies. Now, this is simply a fact that has been, you can say, shared with you. So, it's a neutral tone. कि भाई 1200 बच्चे थे, ठीक है, 1200 बच्चों को एक कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव ओवरव्यू ऑफ द करंट स्टूडेंट ओपिनियंस ऑफ एजुकेशनल प्रैक्टिसेस दिया गया था. सो ये क्या है, न्यूट्रल टोन है, एंड इंफॉर्मेशन इज बीइंग गिवन टू यू सिंपली, दैट इज इट. नाउ सी, देयर वाज अ पेडेस्ट्रियन टोन आल्सो, राइट? सो पेडेस्ट्रियन टोन विल कम अंडर दिस न्यूट्रल टोन. पर पेडेस्ट्रियन टोन में क्या है, बिल्कुल ही स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड, इसमें थोड़ा सा एक इंफॉर्मेशन आपके पास जा रहा है, उसमें भी इंफॉर्मेशन जा रहा है, बट दैट इंफॉर्मेशन इज इवन वेरी बोरिंग. ठीक है, 10 बजे क्लास शुरू हुआ, 11 बजे खत्म हो गया, मेकिंग सेंस. बट दैट पेडेस्ट्रियन टोन दैट कम्स अंडर दिस neutral. Is that clear, students? So let me go to the next one for the day. Now we have the convincing tone, the persuasive tone, right? So now you know, in a persuasive tone, you will speak in such a manner because you want to convince the other person. So if the author wants to convince the reader about something, he uses the persuasive tone. Right, so let me read it for you. The persuasive tone seeks to influence the reader's thoughts or actions by presenting compelling arguments and emotional appeals that resonate with them. Right, so basically the persuasive tone seeks to influence the reader's thoughts. अभी देखो आप convince कैसे होते हो. If somebody says something to you, he wants to convince or persuade you, but if your thoughts do not match with his, then probably you will not be convinced. As simple as that, right? So when the author tries to match his thoughts with your thoughts, right, he wants to basically influence your thoughts. राइट, देखो अगर तो आपके पास बिल्कुल स्ट्रॉन्ग अपना एक आइडियोलॉजी है, अपना आइडियाज एंड थॉट्स है, देन यू माइट नॉट बी कन्विंस्ड अबाउट अ पर्टिकुलर थिंग. बट एट टाइम्स we are unaware of certain things, and when the other person says something, because we are unaware, so we get easily influenced by that, right? And at times we feel, no, this person is right. I had a different you can say notion on this thing earlier, but now I understand that what he said, what the author said, is quite correct, making sense. So he uses such terminology, he uses such vocabulary, right? He uses such phrases in his you can say piece of text that we do understand कि हाँ भाई सच बोल रहे हैं, and we get influenced, we get impacted, we get persuaded, right, students? So as an example, there's a passage. Schools must introduce structured reading hours to foster literacy and enhance students' comprehension skills, preparing them for successful futures in an information-rich world. Now, if this particular paragraph, this small paragraph, is probably read by any of the parents per se, let me tell you very honestly, even I being a parent, let me tell you very honestly, most of us would agree with it. That means, yes, we also feel at the back of our head that, yes, this is true. And when somebody tells us, right, when an author tells us in his, as in text, that yes, schools must introduce structured reading hours. And we are like, yes, schools must do it. Karna chahiye unko. So we get persuaded by it. Is that clear, students? So easy clue for you is look for language that encourages action, making strong appeals and emphasizing the importance of the argument to motivate the audience towards a specific response. Now, this persuasive tone, basically it encourages action. हाँ, ऐसा होना चाहिए. It should be done. Right? That means it's a persuasive tone. Is that clear, students? Alright, so let's see. Now we have a reflective tone. So reflection again means you're reflecting upon something in the past maybe. Right, so let's understand the importance of reflection. Reflective tone involves introspection. है ना, जो हम कभी नहीं करते हैं, generally नहीं करते हैं, right? But yes, we should introspect, right? And in my classes also, I tell the students that sit with yourself for some time and start writing on a piece of paper that who am I? Right? So that is an introspection. बचपन से अभी तक मैंने क्या करा है, क्या मैंने अचीव करा है, अभी आगे मुझे क्या अचीव, because unless you know it, you won't be able to see. When you sit for the interviews and all, right, you want to answer, but if you've not introspected so far कि मुझे करना क्या है लाइफ में, your answers will not come naturally. Right, so it's very important. Introspection is very important. And if you remember that there was this poem by Pablo Neruda, Keeping Quiet, that also says that just as it count up to 12 and try to introspect that what you've been doing, what is the purpose of your life and all those things, right? So introspection, basically reflective tones involve introspection and consideration of past experiences, allowing writers to explore their thoughts and feelings about specific events and situations. So you're reflecting upon the past. ठीक है, और past experience से आप लोगों का present बहुत हद तक बनता है. Although if we have some horrendous past, right, traumatic past, we should always try to come over it, but it doesn't have an impact on our present also, right? Now let me take an example. If I say, looking back, I realize how much I have grown from my mistakes, shaping my understanding of life and relationships. So I have grown as a person, right? I have grown, you can say, from my mistakes, from the mistakes I used to commit, shaping my understanding of life and relationships. Now I understand life. Now I understand my relationships quite well. Earlier I was not able to do it. So when I reflect back, right? So when I look back, I feel that yes, I have grown up. I have evolved as a personality. Right? So this is a reflective tone. And an easy clue for you is a reflective tone often expresses personal insights and lessons learned. Remember this, a reflective tone often expresses personal insights and lessons learned, emphasizing emotions connected to past events or experiences, right? Inviting readers to contemplate their own reflections. Making sense. So when probably you are in such you're in some problem or in such a situation where you do not know what to do, and you probably come across again a piece of writing, a passage wherein you feel that okay, what did the author do at this particular point of time, or probably what did the character do at this particular point of time. So you also start reflecting upon, okay, now what I should do. There was the same past as this characters. Making sense. So this is basically the reflective tone. So students, I suppose I made myself clear. Now we have the next tone. Next tone is nostalgic tone, right? Now, nostalgic tone, understanding the warmth in the written reflections, right? Now, nostalgic tone conveys warm feelings about the past, often evoking a sense of longing and affection for previous experiences, places, and people. So this tone, it evokes that warmness, that warm feelings that we had in the past with certain people, at certain places, right? So that is called a nostalgic tone. Now, example. The small school library, filled with scent of old books, brought back fond memories of carefree afternoons spent reading. So probably when we were in our schools, we used to rush to the library, we used to sit there, we used to read a lot, and the scent and the aroma and the smell of those old books, right? Probably I went to a library and the smell of those old books, they made me go back to my past and experience that memory. Right? So that's called a nostalgic tone. Now an easy clue for you, the tone, this tone is characterized by the fond memories. Understand this, the fond memories you have. ठीक है, कुछ हमारी अच्छी memories होते, so we become nostalgic. And probably those memories bring tears to our eyes also. Why? Because we try to relive that experience. We want to relive that experience. We long for it. We desire for it, right? So this tone is characterized by fond memories, often reflecting a strong emotional connection to the past. When you're emotionally connected to the past, then only you'll feel nostalgic. Otherwise, तो जरूरत ही ना मुझे क्या करना है, मेरा past traumatic है. I don't want to even think about that. But if I have some beautiful memories, I often want to think about that, making readers reminisce about their own experiences. So you are trying to get reminded of your own experiences. Is that clear, students? So that's nostalgic tone. All right. Now we have the other tone, that is cautionary tone. In cautionary tone, you are being a little cautious, right? आप थोड़ा सा कॉशियस हो जाते हैं, थोड़े से विजिलेंट हो जाते हैं किसी चीज से रिलेटेड, राइट? सो इट्स अ काइंड ऑफ वार्निंग फील, cautionary tone. Now let me read it for you. The cautionary tone warns about possible dangers. It warns about possible dangers or problems, advising the reader to be careful and vigilant or think critically about the subject matter. ठीक है, तो आपको क्वेश्चन किया जा रहा है, आपको बताया जा रहा है कि बी अ लिटिल वेरी, बी अ लिटिल विजिलेंट, बी अ लिटिल कॉशियस अबाउट द थिंग्स, राइट? Making sense? All right. So as an example, if I say, while artificial intelligence can enhance learning, right? Now again, see, we have used the subordinating conjunction while over here. तो जहाँ पे भी subordinating conjunction है, that means contrary कुछ आने वाला है, right? So it might be a cautionary tone. Are you getting it? All right. While artificial intelligence can enhance learning, it is crucial to understand its potential risks and limitations before implementation. So we know that artificial intelligence, it's doing wonders nowadays, right? It can enhance student learning, but it's also crucial for us to understand its risks, the limitations as related to it before we implement this artificial intelligence. And that's very true in today's world, right? Now the easy clue for you is look for phrases that suggest warnings or advice. So when you're reading that passage, just look for the warnings, look for the pieces of advice that has been given to you, that have been given to you, indicating potential issues or the need for careful consideration in the context that's being discussed. Is that clear, students? I suppose I made myself very much clear on these tones. And now we have probably the last tone for today, that is the sarcastic tone. Now all of you know that what is sarcasm. You talk about, we often talk about the nuances of sarcasm in the classes also, maybe in your figures of speech wala classes. All right, so sarcastic tone involves saying the opposite of what one means. आप जो बोल रहे हैं, ठीक है, वो opposite है जो आप बोलना चाह रहे हैं. Are you getting it? Often in a mocking or critical manner, expressing irony through exaggerated statements. Right? So let's take an example. In fact, all of you know what is a sarcastic tone, right? If I say, apparently replacing teachers with recorded lectures is the best way to improve education. Right? It basically highlights the weirdness, the absurdity of this claim. Right? So you're saying, apparently, replacing the teachers with the recorded lectures is the best way to improve education. No, it's not the best way to improve the education. That is what you're trying to say. You're saying the opposite of it, right? So you're basically mocking at it, right? So this is called a sarcastic tone. Now the easy clue for you is look for the statements that seem overly positive but carry a critical or mocking understanding, right? So you have to look for those phrases or those statements which you feel they are overly positive, कुछ ज़्यादा ही positive लग रही है, right? Okay, but carry a mocking undertone, revealing the writer's true attitude towards that passage, towards that subject. All right, students. So I suppose we have done many as an important, you can say, tones today. We have discussed them, and I am very sure that if you go through this, if you watch this again and again, you'll be able to understand that what is the difference between a critical or a sarcastic tone or a pedestrian tone or probably a nostalgic tone, right? So till we meet next, all the best. Keep taking your mocks and keep revising all these you can say concepts time and again. Look for these videos on your YouTube channel, right? And do understand that taking mocks, taking the assessments, taking the topic assignments, taking the, you can say, sectional tests, everything is really very important for you if you really want to crack the examination with good score. All right, students. So bye-bye for now. Take care. God bless you all.